Graduation night. I thought I'd finally be enough until my stepfather grabbed my hair and dragged me into the garage while my mother stood there, laughing. They thought I'd stay silent like always, but I had evidence. I had a plan, and I had thousands of eyes that would witness the truth. Tonight wasn't about me begging for their approval anymore. Tonight, they would be the ones begging for my forgiveness. My name is Brooke Harper, and at 24, I'd just crossed the finish line I'd been sprinting toward for 6 years. The tassel on my mortarboard still smelled like fresh plastic when we pulled into the driveway of my childhood home in Columbus, Ohio. Midland State University's diploma sat in its leather folder on my lap, corners sharp enough to cut. Next to it, the offer letter from Harbor and Pine Creative paid internship, benefits. A real desk with my name on it starting Monday. The house blazed with light. Mom Elaine had strung paper lanterns across the backyard, their glow catching on the rental folding chairs arranged in perfect rows. She'd invited everyone her book club, Rick's bowling league, distant cousins who only materialized for weddings and funerals. Even my 17-year-old sister Maddie had been allowed to invite friends, though I saw her checking her phone every 30 seconds, probably counting down to Rick's 9:30 curfew. Rick Dalton stood by the makeshift bar, already 3 beers deep, judging by the flush creeping up his neck. My stepfather managed a trucking depot on the west side, liked to tell people he ran logistics for the heartland. What he really did was terrorize drivers about delivery times and come home reeking of diesel and other people's fear. There's my college girl. He raised his beer when he saw me, voice carrying across the yard. The neighbors probably heard it 2 houses down. Come here, let everyone see you. I knew that tone jovial on the surface, commanding underneath. I walked over, keeping my shoulders straight, the diploma folder pressed against my ribs like armor. Tell them about your little job, he said, arm heavy across my shoulders. His breath was yeast and something sharper whiskey from the flask he thought nobody knew about. Graphic design, right, making pictures on computers. Creative strategy, I corrected quietly. Brand development and digital marketing campaigns. He laughed, the sound scraping like a key against car paint. Fancy words. But you know what they say, those who can do, those who can't? He squeezed my shoulder hard enough that I'd find fingerprints later. Well, they make pretty pictures. The group chuckled uncomfortably. Mom appeared at his elbow, her red lipstick perfect despite the heat, smiling her church smile. Rick's just proud, she said, though her eyes stayed cold. We all are. The party deteriorated from there. By 8:45, Rick had cornered me by the garage, away from the lantern light. His face had gone from flushed to mottled, veins standing out on his forehead. You think you're better than us now. His words slurred at the edges. Walking around here with your degree, your fancy internship, you'll never be enough. Never. Some piece of paper doesn't change what you are. I need to check on Maddie. The slap came fast, his palm cracking across my cheek hard enough to snap my head sideways. Before I could react, his fist connected with my ribs, driving the air from my lungs. Then his fingers were in my hair, yanking me backward, dragging me through the garage's side door. The fluorescent light hummed overhead, casting everything in sick yellow. Oil stains on the concrete looked like Rorschach tests. My hips slammed into his workbench, tools rattling. Through the door, I heard voices, laughter, the party continuing. Then I saw her mom standing in the doorway, watching. And as Rick shoved me against the wall, as my head cracked against the pegboard where he hung his wrenches, she laughed. Actually laughed. Maybe this will teach her some humility, she said to someone behind her I couldn't see. My Apple Watch was recording. I'd started it earlier to practice my thank you speech, forgotten to stop it. And through the garage window, I glimpsed the red light of our neighbor's doorbell camera, Mr. Reese's new security system that he'd installed facing the street and, coincidentally, our garage. Rick let go eventually, stumbling back to his party. Mom disappeared without another word. I sat on the garage floor, tasting copper, feeling my ribs throb with each breath. But deeper than the pain, something else crystallized cold, patient, precise. They thought this was over. They thought I'd slink away, make excuses, cover the bruises with makeup and lies like always. But they'd made one mistake. They'd done it on the night I finally had something to lose. And that meant I finally had the power to make them lose everything, too. The web of favoritism and silence in our house had been spinning long before that graduation night. I'd lived inside it since I was 14, when Mom married Rick after knowing him for exactly 4 months. She'd been so proud of landing him a man with a steady job, a house, a new truck every 3 years. Never mind that his first wife had filed 3 police reports before their divorce. Never mind that his own son wouldn't return his calls. High school became my training ground in survival. When Rick started his corrections, grabbing my arm hard enough to leave marks, shoving me into walls when Mom wasn't looking, I learned to wear long sleeves in August. When I tried telling Mom, she'd tilt her head like I was speaking a foreign language. "You're being dramatic, Brooke. Rick's just trying to be a father figure. You're not used to discipline." The gaslighting was an art form. They'd refined it over years, a tag-team erosion of reality. If I said Rick hit me, Mom would swear she was right there and nothing happened. If I showed bruises, they were from my clumsiness. Wasn't I always bumping into things when teachers asked questions? Mom preemptively called them, explaining how I was going through a phase. Seeking attention. Having adjustment issues. Maddie got the prettier cage. Rick didn't hit her. He didn't need to. He controlled her through her phone, checking every text, tracking her location. 9:30 curfew even on weekends. No dating. No social media. He'd bought her a car for her 16th birthday, then installed a GPS tracker that sent alerts if she deviated from approved routes. Mom called it keeping her safe. Maddie called it nothing at all. She'd learned from watching me that speaking up only made things worse. I'd tried therapy once, during my sophomore year at Midland State. The campus counseling center was free, confidential. Dr. Brenner diagnosed mild anxiety, completely reasonable given environmental stressors. But somehow, Mom found out, probably from the insurance explanation of benefits, even though I hadn't used insurance. She and Rick weaponized it immediately. "Brooke's in therapy," became their explanation for everything. Late to dinner because of work. That's her anxiety acting up. Disagreed with Rick about politics. Her therapist was filling her head with liberal nonsense. Tried to tell Aunt Carol about the abuse, poor thing. Her therapist says she has trouble distinguishing reality from her feelings. The beautiful cruelty of it seeking help became proof I was unstable. Getting better became evidence I was sick, but this time was different. This time, Rick had made the mistake of doing it when I had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Harbor and Pine Creative wouldn't want an intern showing up with a black eye. The professional headshots I'd paid for would be useless with my face swollen. He'd threatened the one thing I'd built entirely on my own, without their money or approval or permission. I sat in my childhood bedroom that night, cataloging the damage in my phone's camera. The bruise spreading across my left cheekbone like spilled wine. The finger marks on my upper arm. 5 perfect ovals. My ribs, already purpling in the shape of his knuckles. Each photo time-stamped, geotagged, undeniable. The Apple Watch data was even better. Audio of the whole thing, his slurred threats, the sound of impact, Mom's laughter cutting through it all like a rusty blade. My heart rate spiking from 68 to 143 beats per minute in the space of seconds. The accelerometer data showing sudden, violent movement. Technology had given me something victims 20 years ago couldn't have proof that existed outside of anyone's ability to deny or distort. I pulled up my old therapy notes from Dr. Brenner on my laptop. Reading them now, I saw them differently. Patient reports historical pattern of familial conflict. Describes episodes consistent with domestic violence. Shows hypervigilance and symptoms of complex trauma. He'd been documenting it all, carefully, professionally. What they'd used as ammunition against me was actually a paper trail of their abuse. The house had gone quiet. Through my window, I watched the last party guests leave. Rick standing in the driveway, playing the proud father until the last car turned the corner. Mom would be in the kitchen, washing dishes, humming church hymns like she hadn't just watched her husband beat her daughter. Maddie knocked on my door, 2 soft taps. Our old code. "You okay?" she whispered through the crack. "Yeah, you—" He took my phone, says I was on it too much during the party. Same old Rick, control through confiscation. But hearing the resignation in my sister's voice, the defeat she'd learned from watching me fail to fight back for years, that was the final piece clicking into place. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about Maddie, about to start her senior year, trapped for another year minimum. This was about every family dinner where she'd watch her words, every friend she couldn't see, every normal teenage experience stolen by Rick's rules and Mom's enabling. I wasn't going to make noise. I wasn't going to scream or throw things or make threats. I was going to be methodical, systematic, surgical. I was going to use every tool the system provided, follow every rule, document every step. They'd spent years building their web of silence and control. I was going to burn it down with the truth. The morning after graduation, I drove myself to MedExpress Urgent Care on Riverside Drive. The waiting room smelled like bleach and anxiety, fluorescent lights harsh enough to make everyone look sick. When the nurse called my name, I didn't flinch at standing up despite my ribs screaming. "What brings you in today?" She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes behind wire-frame glasses. "I need documentation of injuries from an assault." Her fingers paused over the keyboard. "Do you want us to call the police?" "I'll handle that myself. Right now. I just need medical documentation." She photographed everything. The bruise on my face had deepened overnight, purple-black with edges going green. The grip marks on my arm. My ribs, which she said were bruised but not broken small mercies. Each injury cataloged, measured, described in clinical language that couldn't be argued with or explained away. Contusion to left zygomatic arch, approximately 7 centimeters in diameter. 5 circular contusions on right upper arm consistent with grip marks. Multiple contusions to left lateral ribs, 7th through 9th. Before leaving, I uploaded the Apple Watch data to my cloud storage, then exported the audio file. Rick's voice came through clear. "You'll never be enough." The sound of impact. Mom's laugh. All time-stamped, all saved in 3 different locations. My next stop was Mr. Reese's house. He was in his garage, tinkering with a lawnmower, NPR playing on an old radio. "Brooke heard the party last night. Congratulations on graduating." "Thanks, Mr. Reese." I kept my face turned so he couldn't see the bruise. "Actually, I had a weird question. Your new doorbell camera, does it happen to catch any of our driveway?" He straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag. "It gets a bit of your garage." "Yeah." "Why?" "Something happened. There might have been someone messing around near the cars last night. Would it be possible to check?" He pulled out his phone, opened the app. "Why, what time?" "Between 8:30 and 9:15. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. You could see Rick dragging me through the side door, my feet stumbling to keep up. You could see Mom appear in the doorway, silhouetted against the party lights. You could even see her shoulders shaking with laughter before she turned away. "Jesus Christ," Mr. Reese whispered. "Brooke, is that? Can you save that footage, email it to me?" "I'll do you one better." He pulled out a USB drive from his toolbox, plugged it into his laptop. "You're going to need this for the police, aren't you?" While he transferred the file, my phone buzzed. "Mom, heard you left early this morning. Stop being dramatic and come home. We need to talk about your attitude." Then, Rick, "Your sister's college fund depends on this family staying together. Think carefully about your next move." I screenshotted both messages, added them to the folder. By noon, Elaine had started her campaign. I watched it unfold on Facebook from my car in the urgent care parking lot. So proud of our graduate emotional day for everyone. Young adults can be so overwhelming. The comments poured in. "They grow up so fast. Enjoy this time. You're such a good mom. She'd already started crafting the narrative. Emotional graduate. Overwhelming young adult. Nothing to see here. I called the Columbus Police non-emergency line at 12:47 p.m. I need to report a domestic assault. The officer who responded. Officer Martinez took my statement in his cruiser outside the Starbucks where I'd asked to meet. He looked at the medical report, watched the doorbell footage on my phone, listened to 30 seconds of the Apple Watch audio before holding up his hand. This is good evidence, he said carefully. But I need to be honest with you. Your stepfather and mother are going to have a different story. They always do. Without immediate danger. It's going to be treated as a report, not an arrest. But this case number, he handed me a business card with numbers written on it. This starts a paper trail. Document everything. Any contact, any threats, any escalation. By 3 p.m., Rick and Elaine knew I'd talked to the police. Rick's truck screeched into the urgent care parking lot just as I was leaving. I locked my doors, started recording on my phone. He parked behind me, blocking me in, got out slowly, deliberately, walked to my driver's side window. You ungrateful little bitch, he said, voice calm enough that passers-by wouldn't notice. You're going to withdraw that report. You're going to tell them you were drunk, confused, or Maddie loses everything, college fund, car, phone, everything. I kept recording, said nothing. You listening to me? You think that fancy internship is going to last when they find out you're mentally unstable, when they hear about your therapy, your anxiety diagnosis. Who's going to believe the crazy girl over her concerned parents? Mom appeared at the passenger side, knocking on the glass with her wedding ring. Tap, tap, tap. Brooke, honey, let's go home and talk about this. We can work it out as a family. They stayed for 10 more minutes, alternating between threats and appeals. I documented all of it. Finally, someone must have called security because a guard started walking over, and they left. But not before Rick leaned down one more time. You started this war, he said. But I've been fighting it longer than you've been alive. Maybe he had, but he'd never fought someone with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. He'd never fought someone who'd learned from years of watching him exactly how he operated. He'd never fought someone who was done being afraid. 3 days later, Elaine orchestrated her masterstroke a family reconciliation dinner at the house. She'd invited her sister Patricia, Rick's brother Tom, and most importantly, our pastor's wife, Mrs. Whitfield, witnesses with social standing who'd see a concerned mother trying to heal her family. I arrived at 6:15 p.m., knowing exactly what I was walking into. The dining room had been staged like a magazine spread Mom's good china. Fresh flowers, the lighting soft and forgiving. She'd even put out the photo albums, carefully curated to show happy family moments. There she is, Elaine said warmly, pulling me into a hug that made my ribs ache. She whispered in my ear, grip tightening, "Play along or Maddie pays." The dinner was a performance. Rick, sober and showered, playing the concerned stepfather. Mom, the devoted mother just trying to understand her troubled daughter. They'd briefed their audience well. Everyone kept mentioning my difficulties, my adjustment issues, that therapy I'd needed in college. After dessert, Mom produced the document. 3 pages, professionally typed. We just want to put this misunderstanding behind us, she said, sliding it across the table. This states that the events of graduation night were a mutual disagreement, that no assault occurred, and that you won't pursue any legal action that could harm the family. Or Maddie's future, Rick added quietly. Mrs. Whitfield nodded approvingly. Forgiveness is divine. Brooke, don't let pride destroy your family. I read every line while they watched. The document was thorough. It would invalidate everything I'd reported, destroy any future legal case, even prevent me from speaking publicly about it. At the bottom, a place for my signature and 3 witness lines. I need time to think about it, I said. Sign it now. Rick's mask slipped slightly. Or I'll sign it, I interrupted. But I want one change. I want it to explicitly state that Maddie's college fund remains untouched regardless of any future family dynamics. Mom and Rick exchanged glances, added the clause by hand. I signed. The witnesses signed. Aunt Patricia took photos of everyone smiling together afterward. What they didn't know was that I'd already been to Safe Steps legal clinic that morning. The volunteer attorney, Jennifer Huang, had reviewed everything. A contract signed under duress isn't legally binding, she'd explained, especially with the threats documented. But more importantly, we're filing for a temporary protection order based on the original assault, not any subsequent agreement. That doorbell footage alone is enough. She'd also connected me with someone else, Maddie's school counselor, Ms. Garcia, who'd been documenting concerns about my sister for 2 years. The controlled phone access, the GPS tracking, the isolation from peers. I've been waiting for someone to come forward, Ms. Garcia had said. Maddie won't talk, but I've seen the signs. The night after the dinner, I went back to Mr. Teresa's house. This time, I brought a thank you card and a USB drive. I'm sorry to bother you again, I said. But could you check if your camera caught anything unusual Thursday night around 11 p.m.? He pulled up the footage. There was Rick's truck, pulling up to my apartment building. Rick getting out, kicking over my trash bins, keying something into the door of my car, the rage in his movements visible even in black and white. That son of a Mr. Reese caught himself. Sorry. Here, let me save this for you. I was building a portfolio of Rick's true face. The threatening texts kept coming, all screenshotted, the voicemails where he forgot to control his tone, all saved. Mom's Facebook posts painting me as unstable, all documented. But the real breakthrough came from Maddie. She cornered me in a Panera restroom, away from any possibility of Rick's surveillance. I know what you're doing, she whispered. I want to help. It's too dangerous. I got into Rick's phone. She pulled out her own phone, showed me screenshots, text messages between Rick and Mom, planning the reconciliation dinner trap. Rick bragging to a coworker about putting that bitch in her place. And worse, a video from their home security system of Rick grabbing Maddie by the collar when she'd tried to defend me, shoving her against the kitchen counter. He forgot I knew the password from when he made me set it up, she said. I sent everything to a new email account he doesn't know about. Maddie, if he finds out, I'm tired of being scared, she said, and for a moment she looked older than 17. I'm tired of watching them hurt you and knowing I'm next once you're gone. We had 2 weeks until Midland State's Alumni Recognition Day. Rick had already RSVP'd. He loved playing successful father at these things, networking with other parents, pretending our family was something it wasn't. Jennifer from Safe Steps had news. The TPO is ready to file. We can time it so the judge signs it that morning. I've arranged for campus police and a process server to be present at the event. You want to serve him publicly? You want him to never forget, she corrected. Public accountability is sometimes the only kind that works. I started my internship at Harbor and Pine Creative that Monday, makeup covering the fading bruises. Threw myself into preparing a presentation for the alumni event officially about data visualization and brand storytelling, unofficially about something much more personal. You're really dedicated to this project, my supervisor noted, seeing me work late again. It's important, I said. It's about showing how data can reveal truths that narratives try to hide. She had no idea how true that was. The morning I filed for the temporary protection order, Jennifer sat beside me in the courthouse waiting room that smelled like old coffee and fear. My hands were steady as I signed each form, attached each piece of evidence. The medical report with its clinical descriptions, the doorbell camera footage saved on 3 separate drives, the Apple Watch audio transcribed by a certified court reporter, screenshots of every threat, every attempt at intimidation. This is comprehensive, the clerk said, flipping through the stack. Judge Harrison will review it this afternoon. That night, Rick escalated. At 11:43 p.m., he showed up at my apartment complex, slamming his fist against my door hard enough to wake the neighbors. My hallway camera, a $20 device I'd bought from Amazon, captured everything. Open this fucking door. You think you're smart? You think you're safe? I know where you work now. Harbor and Pine Creative. Right. Nice office on High Street. I called 911, stayed on the line while he raged for 12 minutes before leaving. The responding officers took my report, reviewed the footage, added it to the case file. The paper trail was becoming a paper mountain. 2 days later, Jennifer called. The judge signed it. The TPO is active immediately, but it needs to be served. Rick has to be formally notified. The alumni event is this Saturday. I know. I've already coordinated with campus police and a licensed process server. They'll be there. The controlled escalation phase had begun. Each move Rick made, I documented. Each threat became evidence. When he drove past Harbor and Pine Creative 3 times in one morning, the security cameras caught it all. When Mom started calling my employer, concerned about my mental health, I had them document the harassment. My presentation for Alumni Recognition Day was taking shape. Officially titled Truth in Data Storytelling Through Evidence, it used anonymous case studies to show how data could reveal patterns hidden by narrative manipulation. Case 27B was the centerpiece, a detailed analysis of escalating domestic violence, gaslighting tactics, and institutional enabling. I hired 3 film students from Midland State's media program to professionally record the presentation. We need multiple angles, I told them. Full room coverage, audience reactions, and a clear shot of the presentation screen at all times. This must be important, one of them said. It's everything. The real coup came from Maddie, who'd become bolder since our Panera conversation. She managed to extract 6 months of Rick's text messages, including ones to his ex-wife where he admitted to losing control sometimes, and messages to his brother calling me that ungrateful bitch who needs to learn her place. But the most damning thing she found was a video from 3 weeks before graduation. Rick had installed home security cameras to monitor Maddie, but forgot they also recorded him. The footage showed him practicing his graduation speech in the mirror, then suddenly exploding, punching the wall while screaming about how I thought I was better than him and how he'd show me at the party. Premeditation. He'd been planning to hurt me at graduation. How did you get this? I asked Maddie. He uses the same password for everything, she said. His high school football jersey number and the year he graduated. Jennifer reviewed the new evidence with barely contained excitement. This changes things. This could elevate charges from simple assault to aggravated assault with premeditation. But Brooke, once we submit this to the court, there's no going back. There never was. Shots. Thursday before the alumni event. I did a practice run of my presentation for Jennifer and the Safe Steps team. When I reached Case 27B and the audio played, You'll Never Be Enough, Jennifer's assistant had to leave the room. You're going to destroy them, Jennifer said quietly. I'm going to tell the truth. If that destroys them, that's their doing, not mine. Mom made one last attempt that Friday. She showed up at Harbor and Pine during my lunch break, dressed in her best sympathetic mother costume cardigan, pearls, tissues visible in her purse. Please, Brooke, think about what you're doing. Think about Maddie's future. Think about the family's reputation. I am thinking about Maddie, I said. For the first time. Someone's actually thinking about her. You're sick, she hissed, dropping the act when she saw I wasn't budging. You've always been jealous of the life Rick and I built. You can't stand that we're happy. Happy people don't laugh while their children are being beaten. Mom! She slapped me, in broad daylight, in front of my office building, with people watching. The security camera over the entrance caught it all. Feel better? I asked, my cheek stinging. She left without another word, but I saw her hands shaking as she walked away. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know what. That night, I backed up everything one more time. 3 cloud services, 2 external drives, 1 USB in a safety deposit box. The presentation was locked, loaded with evidence, ready to deploy. The campus police had their instructions. The process server had Rick's photo and would be watching for him. Maddie texted me at 11:58 p.m. He's drunk and ranting about tomorrow. Says he's going to make sure everyone knows what an ungrateful disappointment you are. Let him come, I replied. Saturday morning, I stood in the auditorium tech booth, watching the AV team set up the recording equipment. The presentation was loaded, each slide a nail in the coffin I'd built for Rick and Elaine's public facades. Case 27B waited in the queue, silent but ready to scream. They wanted a war. They were about to get an execution. The Midland State University Alumni Recognition Day program listed my presentation for 2:30 p.m. in the main auditorium. By 1 o'clock, I was in the AV control room with the 3 film students I'd hired, going over the technical setup one final time. Remember, I told them, we need everything captured. Wide shots of the audience, close-ups during reactions, and the screen must be clearly visible throughout. This feels like we're filming something historic, Jake, the lead cameraman, said while adjusting his equipment. He had no idea. Dr. Morgan from the communications department found me backstage at 1:45. Brooke, I've reviewed your presentation. This case 27B, it's quite intense. Are you sure about including such personal material? It's the most important case study I have. She studied my face, perhaps noting the fading shadow of bruise under my concealer. The Title IX office will be present, as you requested. Campus security, too. That's unusual for an alumni presentation. It's an unusual presentation. I'd spent the morning coordinating with Jennifer through encrypted messages. The process server, a former cop named Daniel, was already in the building, wearing a visitor's badge and blending with the arriving families. 2 campus officers were stationed at the exits, standard for large events, but they'd been specifically briefed by the Title IX coordinator about potential disruption. At 2:10 p.m., I watched from backstage as the auditorium filled. Parents in their business casual uniforms, students in Midland State hoodies, faculty making small talk near the refreshment table. Then I saw them Rick in his favorite Ohio State jacket, the one he wore to feel important. Mom beside him in the navy dress she saved for occasions where she needed to look respectable. They sat 5th row center, Rick already glad-handing the couple next to them. Maddie slipped in separately, sitting near the back with a friend from school. She caught my eye and nodded she'd done her part. At 2:23 p.m., she forwarded me confirmation that she'd submitted all Rick's phone backups to a secure cloud folder Jennifer could access. The evidence of premeditation, the admission of past violence, all of it preserved beyond Rick's ability to destroy. 5 minutes. Brooke, the stage manager called. I pulled up the presentation one more time, checking that each embedded file worked. The audio from my Apple Watch. The doorbell camera footage, edited to protect Mr. Reese's privacy, but showing Rick dragging me clearly. The screenshots arranged in chronological order, showing escalation. And at the center, the data visualization, a timeline that transformed personal trauma into undeniable patterns. Dr. Morgan introduced me at precisely 2:30 p.m. Our next presenter is Brooke Harper, recent graduate and now junior strategist at Harbor and Pine Creative. Her work on data-driven narrative has already gained attention from several major firms. I walked on stage to polite applause. Rick clapped loudest, playing Proud Parent. The lights were bright enough that I could only see the first few rows clearly, but I felt the weight of all those eyes. Good afternoon. Today I want to talk about truth, how we find it, how we prove it, and how we reveal it when powerful people try to hide it. Sir, the first slides were innocuous general statistics about narrative manipulation, how data can cut through emotional distortion. I built my argument methodically, teaching the audience to see patterns before I showed them mine. Case studies help us understand these principles, I said, clicking to a new section. I've analyzed several instances where data revealed truths that narratives tried to hide. Investment fraud, academic plagiarism, and this case, 27B, a longitudinal study of domestic violence and institutional enabling. The energy in the room shifted. I heard Mom's sharp intake of breath. This case spans 10 years of escalating abuse, gaslighting, and systematic silencing. The perpetrators thought they were careful. They controlled the narrative, isolated the victims, used social standing to discredit reports, but they didn't account for technology. I clicked to the timeline. Each incident plotted precisely, color-coded by type physical abuse in red, psychological abuse in orange, witness intimidation in black. The pattern was undeniable, a rising crescendo of violence. The victims in Case 27B were told they were crazy, dramatic, attention-seeking. But data doesn't lie. Heart rate monitors showing spikes during attacks. Security cameras capturing what happened when perpetrators thought no one was watching. Audio recordings of threats that were later denied. Rick stood up. "What the hell is this? Please hold questions until the end," I said calmly, then clicked to the next slide. The audio began to play. Rick's voice, slurred but clear. "You'll never be enough. Never. Some piece of paper doesn't change what you are." The sound of impact. Mom's laughter. "This audio," I continued over the gasps from the audience, "was recorded during a graduation party. The perpetrator attacked the victim for the crime of finishing college." The process server was moving down the aisle now, document in hand. I clicked again. The doorbell footage played on the massive screen, shadowy but clear. A man dragging a young woman by her hair, a figure in the doorway, watching. The timestamp visible May 15th, 8:52 p.m. "The perpetrators made one critical mistake," I said, looking directly at Rick. "They forgot that in the modern world. Someone is always watching. Something is always recording." Daniel reached the fifth row. "Richard Dalton, you're being served with a temporary protection order. You need to come with us." The room erupted. Rick lunged toward the stage, but campus security intercepted him. Mom screamed something about lies, about defamation, but Jennifer was already at her side with a cease and desist letter. I clicked one more time. The final slide showed just 4 words. "Truth survives every test." "Case 27B isn't anonymous," I said into the microphone as security led Rick toward the exit. "It's mine. I'm Brooke Harper, and Richard Dalton has abused me for 10 years while my mother, Elaine Dalton, enabled and participated in it." The cameras were still rolling, capturing everything Rick's rage, Mom's mask finally cracking, the audience's shock transforming into something else. Maddie had moved to the front, standing where I could see her, tears streaming down her face but her posture straight and proud. "Maddie Harper is 17 years old," I continued, my voice carrying over the chaos. "She's been controlled, monitored, and isolated. Today, that ends too." The auditorium had become a theater of revelation. 400 people sat frozen as my presentation continued, each slide another nail in the coffin of Rick and Elaine's carefully constructed image. The film students' cameras swept across stunned faces, professors who'd smiled at Rick during faculty mixers, parents who'd praised Elaine's dedication at PTA meetings, students who'd never imagined such violence could hide behind suburban respectability. "The data tells a story," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos at the exits where Rick struggled against campus security. 10 years of escalation, 37 documented incidents, 12 medical visits explained away as clumsiness, 3 therapy attempts sabotaged by perpetrators who weaponized mental health against their victim. Click. A graph showing correlation between Rick's alcohol consumption and violent episodes. Data pulled from credit card records Maddie had photographed. Perpetrators follow patterns. They isolate before major holidays when victims might seek help. They escalate after professional achievements that threaten their sense of control. Click. The screenshot of Rick's text. "Your sister's college fund depends on this family staying together. Think carefully about your next move." They use financial coercion, threatening the education and futures of younger victims to silence older ones. Mom had fought her way to the aisle, her perfect navy dress askew, her church lady composure shattered. "This is lies. She's mentally ill. Check her therapy records." "Interesting you mention that," I said, pulling up the next slide excerpts from Dr. Brenner's notes that Jennifer had legally obtained with my consent. Let me read what an actual mental health professional documented. Patient presents with symptoms consistent with complex trauma, reports ongoing domestic violence, shows remarkable resilience despite lack of familial support. The Title IX coordinator stood near Mom now, speaking quietly but firmly. I saw her mention something about mandatory reporting, about Maddie's age, about investigations. But the most damning evidence, I continued, comes from the perpetrator himself. The video Maddie had extracted played on the giant screen. Rick in his own home, 3 weeks before graduation, punching the wall and raging about teaching me a lesson at the party. His own security camera had captured his premeditation. Gasps rippled through the audience. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, he planned it." Rick had stopped struggling, his face pale as he realized the scope of what was happening. This wasn't just a protection order, this was public annihilation. "The question isn't whether abuse happened," I said. "The data proves it did. The question is, how many people had to look away for it to continue for a decade?" Click. A network diagram showing everyone who'd been told something, relatives who dismissed concerns, teachers who noted bruises but never followed up, police who labeled it domestic dispute and left. This is what institutional enabling looks like. Each node in this network chose silence over intervention. Aunt Patricia was in the audience. I saw her face crumple as her name appeared in the diagram, labeled Dismissed Victims' Concerns, 2019. Case 27B teaches us that abusers don't operate in isolation. They require a support system of denial, minimization, and complicity. Click. The audio played again, but this time I'd isolated and enhanced Mom's laughter. It echoed through the auditorium, sharp and cruel and undeniable. That's the sound of a mother laughing while her daughter is beaten. That's the sound of complicity. Mom lunged toward the stage, but Jennifer intercepted her with practiced ease. "Mrs. Dalton, I'm Jennifer Huang from Safe Steps Legal Clinic. This cease and desist order prohibits you from contacting Brooke Harper or disparaging her publicly. Additionally, Child Protective Services will be investigating the welfare of your minor daughter." "You can't do this!" Mom shrieked. "The evidence suggests otherwise," Jennifer replied coolly. I clicked to my final content slide. It showed 2 photos side by side, my bruised face the morning after graduation, and my professional headshot taken a week later, makeup covering the damage. Victims become experts at hiding evidence. We learn to cover bruises, explain away injuries, protect our abusers' reputations. But technology has given us the power to preserve truth, even when we're too scared to speak it. The process server approached Mom with another envelope. "Elaine Dalton, you're being served with a civil suit for intentional infliction of emotional distress and failure to protect a minor from abuse." Rick exploded again, his voice carrying even from the back of the auditorium where security held him. "You fucking bitch, you're destroying this family." I looked directly at him, then spoke into the microphone. "No, Rick, you destroyed this family. I'm just refusing to hide the wreckage anymore." Maddie had moved to the stage stairs. I reached out my hand and pulled her up beside me. She was shaking, but she took the microphone. "My name is Maddie Harper," she said, voice small but clear. "I'm 17 years old. Everything my sister showed you is true. I've watched Rick hurt her for years. I've been controlled, tracked, monitored every second of my life. Today, I'm choosing freedom too." The applause started slowly, 1 person, then 5, then dozens. It built like thunder, drowning out Mom's hysteria and Rick's threats. The standing ovation wasn't for my presentation skills or data visualization. It was for the truth, finally dragged into the light where it couldn't be denied or distorted. "Doctor," Morgan took the microphone as security finally removed Rick from the building. "I think we'll take a brief intermission." But I wasn't done. I pulled up one last slide, one I hadn't shown Jennifer or anyone else. Wait, I said. There's one more thing. The screen showed a QR code and a web address. This links to a complete archive of all evidence presented today, plus additional documentation. It's been submitted to the Columbus Police Department, the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office, and the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. It's also been sent to 3 major news outlets and uploaded to a distributed server that can't be taken down. I looked at Mom, who stood frozen between Jennifer and the Title IX coordinator. You taught me that reputation matters more than anything, I said. So I'm giving you exactly what you valued most attention. Everyone will know exactly who you are. The auditorium lights felt burning hot. The cameras were still rolling. 400 witnesses had seen the truth. And by tomorrow, thousands more would see the footage. Rick's voice echoed from the hallway. You'll never be enough. But he was wrong. I was more than enough. I was the reckoning they never saw coming. The process server's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Richard Dalton, you are hereby served with a temporary protection order. You must maintain a distance of 500 feet from Brooke Harper at all times. The words echoed off the auditorium walls as campus security flanked Rick. His Ohio State jacket was twisted, his face mottled purple with rage and humiliation. 400 pairs of eyes tracked his forced exit, their phones already out, recording everything. This isn't over, Rick roared, spittle flying. You think you've won, I'll destroy you. The officer's hand moved to his radio. Sir, threats in violation of a protection order constitute immediate grounds for arrest. I suggest you remain silent. Mom stood trapped between Jennifer and the Title IX coordinator. Her perfect navy dress now wrinkled, her carefully styled hair falling around her face. The mask she'd worn for so many years, loving mother, devoted wife, pillar of the community, lay in pieces at her feet. Please, she whispered to the crowd, to anyone who would listen. You don't understand. She's troubled. She's always been difficult. Mrs. Dalton, Jennifer interrupted, her voice carrying across the auditorium. Every word you speak is being recorded and can be used in both civil and criminal proceedings. I strongly advise you to stop talking. The cops began moving Rick toward the exit, but he twisted in their grip one last time, his eyes finding mine across the vast space. You're nothing. You hear me. You'll always be nothing. I held the microphone steady, my voice clear and calm. I'm not nothing, Rick. I'm evidence. I'm testimony. I'm the truth you tried to bury under years of bruises and threats. The film student's camera swung between us, capturing the moment in high definition, the abuser being dragged away in handcuffs he'd earned himself with his threats, the victim standing tall on stage, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. Maddie pressed closer to my side, and I felt her trembling. But when she spoke into the microphone, her voice rang with newfound strength. We're free, both of us, finally free. The applause erupted again, but this time it was different, raw, emotional, cathartic. I saw professors wiping their eyes, students recording with shaking hands, parents holding their own children a little tighter. Mom made one last desperate attempt, pulling away from Jennifer to shout at the audience. This is a performance. She planned all this. She's manipulating you just like she's always manipulated everyone. The irony of her words accusing me of manipulation while she'd spent years gaslighting and enabling wasn't lost on the crowd. Someone actually laughed, harsh and disbelieving. Mrs. Dalton, the Title IX coordinator said firmly, Child Protective Services will be conducting a full investigation into your home. I suggest you contact an attorney immediately. The process server stepped forward with another envelope. Elaine Dalton, you're also being served with a civil suit for intentional infliction of emotional distress, failure to protect a minor from abuse, and defamation. The envelope fell from Mom's numb fingers, fluttering to the ground like a white flag of surrender. She looked at me one last time, and for a moment, I saw something crack in her eyes, the realization that her carefully constructed world was collapsing. broadcast live to hundreds of witnesses. "How could you?" she whispered. "How could I not?" I replied. Security escorted her out through a different exit, away from Rick, following protocol for separated parties in domestic violence cases. The auditorium fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the soft whir of cameras still rolling. Dr. Morgan approached the podium, clearly shaken but professional. I think we've all witnessed something extraordinary today, something necessary. Thank you, Brooke, for your courage." But I wasn't quite finished. I pulled Maddie forward, both of us standing in the bright stage lights that no longer felt oppressive but liberating. 10 years, I said into the microphone. 10 years of being told I'd never be enough. 10 years of violence hidden behind suburban smiles and family photos. It ends today, not just for me, but for Maddie, and for anyone else who's been told their truth doesn't matter. The QR code still glowed on the screen behind us, the portal to all the evidence, all the proof, all the truth they'd tried so hard to suppress. Rick Dalton thought he was untouchable. Elaine Harper thought reputation could replace responsibility. They were wrong. I looked directly at the center camera, knowing this moment would be preserved forever, shared countless times, witnessed by strangers who might see their own stories reflected in mine. To anyone watching this who's been told they're not enough, who's been silenced or gaslit or beaten down, you are enough. Your truth matters. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting free. The handcuffs clicked around Rick's wrists in the hallway. We could all hear it through the open doors. The sound of consequences finally catching up. The sound of justice that took 10 years to arrive but arrived nonetheless. Maddie grabbed my hand, squeezing tight. "It's really over." "No," I said, thinking of the court dates ahead, the testimony we'd have to give, the long process of healing. But we're not alone anymore, and we're not afraid. The lights blazed hot and bright. The cameras captured everything, and somewhere in the parking lot, police sirens wailed as Rick was driven away, not to his controlling kingdom, but to a holding cell where his money and manipulation meant nothing. Mom's laughter from that graduation night echoed in my memory one last time, but now it was drowned out by something more powerful, the thunder of applause from hundreds of people who'd witnessed the truth and chosen to stand with us. The presentation slide still glowed behind us. Truth survives every test. And we had survived. Both of us. Finally. Definitively. Free. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your support means everything, and your own stories matter too.